From the Library of Congress in Washington, D.C.
Angela Farris Watkins, author of My Uncle Martin's Words for America, is also the niece of Martin Luther King Jr.
Wow, right?
She is associated professor of psychology and at Spelman College.
The book, My Uncle Martin's Words for America, is an inspirational story about Martin Luther King Jr. You will learn how he used his message of love and peace to effectively fight for African American civil rights.
How many of you guys got to stop by the MLK Memorial?
Oh, it's
Isn't it beautiful?
Incredible. We were so glad we got to
So
go
glad
there.
to see it, yes.
Please join us in welcoming this very special guest, Miss Angela Farris Watkins.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Hello, hello everybody. Hi, how's it going? Having a good time? Very good, very good. Well, I am so glad to be here, and especially because there is a new monument on the National Mall. How many of you all have been to visit the new Martin Luther King Jr. National Memorial, not far from here? Yeah, a few of you, very good. Well, I hope everybody will get a chance to visit very soon. How many of you all have heard of Martin Luther King Jr.? Raise your hands. Very good. That's a lot of you. Well, Martin Luther King Jr. was my uncle. He was my mother's brother. And so that made him my Uncle Martin. Well, we actually called him Uncle M.L. M for Martin, L for Luther. So he was my Uncle M.L. And as I visited the monument not too long ago and looked up at the big statue, it felt like I was looking up at my Uncle M.L. all over again. So I hope you all will be able to visit very soon. Promise? Promise? Okay, very good. So I have written 2 children's books about my Uncle M.L. The first one, and I'll take a seat, is called My Uncle Martin's Big Heart. And I wrote this book because over my life, people have come up to me and asked, what was it like, or what does it feel like being the niece of Martin Luther King Jr.? Do you remember him? So I thought it would be good to write a book including my memories of my Uncle M.L. So I just wanted to make you aware that this book is out, and on the back is a picture of me and my Uncle M.L. And this picture was taken in our church, Ebenezer Baptist Church in Atlanta. And my Uncle M.L. was co-pastor along with my grandfather, Reverend Martin Luther King Sr. So there was a Martin Luther King Sr. and a Martin Luther King Jr. But what I want to read today is my second children's book, and I hope you will like it. It's called My Uncle Martin's Words for America. And I wrote this book because I wanted everyone to know about the good work that Martin Luther King Jr. did. So oftentimes people know and have heard of the name, but they don't really know what he did. So hopefully by the time I finish reading, you will know something about what Martin Luther King Jr. actually did. And one more thing, before you were born, America was a very different place than it is right now. And I wanted to make sure that you knew that some changes were made in America that made it a better place, largely due to the work that Martin Luther King Jr. did. So are you ready to listen? You have on your listening ears? Let's see. Put on your listening ears. Listening ears? Very good. Hi, my name is Angela. I want to tell you how my Uncle Martin used the power of words to help make America better. Before America elected its first African American president, or the first African American woman ran for president, or an African American was appointed as a Supreme Court judge, before African Americans became astronauts or Hollywood directors or billionaires, America was a very different place. There were laws in America that made life difficult for African Americans. These laws kept African Americans from exercising their civil rights, such as being able to choose where to eat, drink, shop, or live. They were called Jim Crow laws. Jim Crow laws prevented African Americans from enjoying life as other people did. African Americans were segregated, kept apart from white Americans. Some people believed in segregation. They were prejudiced. My Uncle Martin did not believe in Jim Crow laws or segregation. He was very disturbed with the way things were in the United States. He became a leader of the American Civil Rights Movement, and his name was, very good, Martin Luther King Jr. Uncle Martin worked hard to change Jim Crow laws. He stood up and spoke out against them. He said to crowds of hundreds and thousands of people that new laws should be created that would give African Americans their civil rights. And it was a good thing he did, because people stopped and listened to him. His deep and captivating voice had rhythm and vibration, just like music. Uncle Martin's voice had power, and so did his words. Uncle Martin believed that the solution to changing Jim Crow laws was love. So he used words of love. And that's when America began to change. Slowly and bit by bit, America changed. When prejudiced people bombed his house, where his wife Coretta, my aunt, and his first baby, Yolanda, my cousin, were at home, Uncle Martin said with a loud voice, "Nonviolence!" The prejudiced people bombed his house because they didn't want him to fight against the Jim Crow laws. Nonviolence means that you will not use hate, weapons, or harmful words to solve your problems. You will only use love. Some people wanted to fight back with guns, but Uncle Martin said nonviolence or non-existence. By this he meant that only love would solve problems. Violence would result in people hurting one another, and some might die. When Uncle Martin used the word nonviolence, people listened and things began to change. The people who wanted to fight back with violence put away their guns and words of hate. They listened to Uncle Martin talk about how much more powerful love is. He showed them how unconditional love would give them the power to change things. Uncle Martin cried out, "Justice!" in Montgomery, Alabama, where African Americans were forced to sit in the back of city buses or stand and give their seats to white Americans if the bus was crowded. Uncle Martin said, "Let justice roll down like waters." He meant that everyone should be treated fairly. When Uncle Martin used the word justice, people listened and things began to change. African Americans boycotted the bus company. They stopped riding the buses. Uncle Martin's words of love gave them courage. And for 381 days, African Americans walked or rode in carpools. Then the rules on the city buses changed. The United States Supreme Court ruled that segregation on buses was against the law. African Americans and all Americans could sit wherever they wanted to. Uncle Martin called out for freedom in a public letter he wrote from a jail cell in Birmingham, Alabama. "We will win our freedom," he wrote when he was arrested for trying to change the laws in Birmingham. These laws kept African Americans from using the same water fountains as white Americans, or eating in the same restaurants, or using the same restrooms. Freedom means that people are not controlled by other people or unfair rules. Uncle Martin's letter became known as Letter from the Birmingham Jail. It contained almost 7,000 words. It was a very long letter. When Uncle Martin used the word freedom, people listened and things changed. People started to march in the streets to show that they wanted change. Even though angry police dogs and water hoses were turned on them, they kept on marching. Uncle Martin's words of love gave them the strength to keep going. They sang, "We shall overcome." They kept on marching until the Supreme Court of the United States said that Birmingham's segregation of African Americans was against the law. African Americans could enjoy public places just like everyone else. Uncle Martin spoke of brotherhood to thousands of people at the Lincoln Memorial in Washington, D.C. when he delivered his famous "I Have a Dream" speech. Standing on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial, Uncle Martin said that we should all sit down together at the table of brotherhood. By that he meant that we should all come together and love each other like family. When Uncle Martin used the word brotherhood, the people listened and things changed. African Americans and white Americans returned to their homes and worked even harder to end the laws that prevented African Americans from enjoying public places like amusement parks and hotels all over the United States. Soon after, a new law was passed, the Civil Rights Act of 1964, and segregation at parks, hotels, and other public places ended. Uncle Martin shouted, "Equality!" to thousands of people in Selma, Alabama, in order to remove the laws that kept African Americans from voting. Equality means that no one is treated differently from anyone else. When Uncle Martin used the word equality, people listened again, and things changed. Thousands of people marched. They started in Selma and headed for Montgomery, Alabama. Angry mobs of police and prejudiced people stopped their first attempt, but the marchers started again a few days later. Uncle Martin's words of love kept them motivated. The second time they made it, they marched all the way to Montgomery, almost 55 miles. It took 5 days and 4 nights, but the people kept on marching, and they marched without fear. Again they sang, "We shall overcome. Love will see us through. We shall overcome." After the march, a new law was passed, the 1965 Voting Rights Act ruled that it was against the law to do things that would keep African Americans from voting, like charging them a poll tax and giving them difficult tests. African Americans could then go straight to the voting polls like everyone else. I'm so glad Uncle Martin spoke because people listened, and America has never been the same. Did you like that? Yes. So now you know something about the work that Martin Luther King Jr. did. So when you go and visit the monument, the memorial, just a few blocks away from here, or when you go back to school, now you can say, I know some things about Martin Luther King Jr. I know some words of love that he used and spoke to America. Words like brotherhood, words like nonviolence, words like equality, and they were all words of love. Thank you so much for listening.
This has been a presentation of the Library of Congress. Visit us at loc.gov.